This girl was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Hae-na is the sole heir of the Kang San Group, one of the leading corporations in East Asia. Therefore, she is not only highly influential in Korea but also extremely wealthy, with her grandfather even building her a private mansion. It has everything from a swimming pool to a golf course, even a private jet, and hundreds of servants serving only the young lady. Because she was born into such a wealthy family, Hae-na has been arrogant and spoiled since childhood, looking down on everyone. Even accidentally getting a hairpin stuck in her hair could get someone fired. The mansion's butler had already been replaced countless times. As long as Hae-na didn't like someone, they were immediately dismissed. And this was already the 17th unlucky guy. However, since she was born into a chaebol family, Hae-na could not escape an arranged marriage. Today, her grandfather had especially arranged a blind date with a young master from another conglomerate. In Hae-na's eyes, the reason they wanted this marriage alliance was because of her family's reputation, so she casually said a few words, repeating some of her past bad rumors, which ruined the meeting. Her grandfather lost face completely, helplessly watching his granddaughter walk away leisurely. Unexpectedly, the young master still refused to give up. He continued chasing after Hae-na, saying he didn't care about her past, and that it was enough if they could be happy together. As he spoke, he placed his hand on her shoulder, which disgusted her. She immediately threw him to the ground and stepped on him, warning him never to touch her again. Because of his granddaughter's recklessness, her grandfather was furious. Not knowing how to explain things to the other side this time, he called home and ordered the butler to keep Hae-na there when she returned, so he could discipline her. At that moment, Dongchan was driving to make a delivery when Hae-na suddenly cut in front of his truck, causing the flower wreath he was carrying to fall off. Frustrated, he went over to reason with her, demanding that she apologize. But Hae-na didn't care at all. She casually pulled out a check for 1 million won as compensation, which made Dongchan even angrier because she treated him like he was nothing. Hae-na thought he was complaining because the amount was too small, so she took out more money. But Dongchan refused to take it and kept arguing. Annoyed, she threw all the money away and drove off. It was the first time Dongchan had ever met someone like her, and he couldn't hold back his anger. He decided he had to teach Hae-na a lesson, so he immediately got in his truck and chased after her, determined to win. But his old truck was no match for her supercar, and he quickly ate her dust. However, no one knew these roads better than he did. Dongchan took a shortcut and blocked her path, thinking this time she would have to give in. Unexpectedly, the competitive Hae-na stepped on the gas and drove straight toward him. As a result, they were both taken to the police station. A lawyer quickly arrived to mediate on behalf of the young lady, saying that if Dongchan agreed to settle, he would receive 50 million won. That was an enormous amount of money for a laborer like Dongchan, and he began to waver. He was about to accept when Hae-na suddenly appeared and called him a scammer, making him refuse to settle and insist on suing her in court. Because of this, Hae-na was fined 10 million won and sentenced to community service. From a chaebol heiress, she now had to wash clothes, wash dishes, and clean chicken coops at a welfare center like a maid. Hae-na could not forget this humiliation and vowed to find Dongchan and take revenge. At this time, he was struggling with a huge debt, so every day he had to do many different jobs to make ends meet, from handing out flyers to working as a hired driver. Meanwhile, Hae-na was mocked by other young ladies for having once done community service. Because of that, she became even more determined to speed up her search for Dongchan. As soon as she learned he was working as a driver, Hae-na immediately summoned Dongchan. When he got in the car, he still didn't recognize her until Hae-na openly revealed her identity. Right after that, she began to mess up her hair, pulled her shirt's shoulder down, then smeared lipstick on Dongchan's lips. While he was still bewildered, not knowing what Hae-na was trying to do, she stuck her head out the window and screamed that she was being kidnapped. Before long, the police arrived and surrounded Dongchan. As soon as he got out of the car, he hadn't even had time to explain before they restrained him. Meanwhile, Hae-na kept playing the pitiful victim, secretly laughing and mocking Dongchan for falling into her trap. Even with 100 mouths, he couldn't explain himself at the police station. The evidence was so clear that of course no one believed Dongchan was innocent. Hearing the news, his neighbors rushed over but didn't know how to help him. Just as Dongchan was about to be thrown into jail, a phone call came in telling the police to pretend nothing had happened, so Dongchan was able to walk away freely. However, just the next morning he heard that his neighborhood was about to be demolished, and the person behind this was none other than Hae-na. This time it was truly more than Dongchan could bear, so he rushed to the mansion to confront her. Of course, the security guards at the gate didn't let him in, so he tricked them and slipped past. But the place was so large that Dongchan kept running without knowing where Hae-na was. At that moment, he saw an old man gardening and ran over to ask, telling him all the outrageous things Hei-na had done to him. That nasty girl. If I find her, I'll definitely teach her a lesson. This house has spoiled her rotten. If she were my sister, just 1 month would be enough for me to fix all her bad habits. Right then, the security guards arrived, so Dongchan hurriedly hid and asked the old man to keep quiet for him. Unexpectedly, the man immediately revealed Dongchan's location to them, and only when he was caught did Dongchan realize this was the chairman himself, not some gardener. After that, the chairman had his men take Dongchan with him to tell him something. When Dongchan returned, he was overjoyed and announced to everyone that they no longer had to move out and that he would go work at the chairman's company. The next day, Hei-na was on her way to the airport, preparing to leave for New York, when she unexpectedly ran into Dongchan once again. This time he said nothing, grabbed Hei-na tightly, called her his lover, then carried her away, threw her into a car, and quickly drove off. Hei-na had no way to resist and kept screaming, but even when a police car passed by, they didn't pay attention to her. This time she thought she was done for, so she wanted to say her last words, asking Dongchan to pass them on to her grandfather. Unexpectedly, the place he took her to was actually Hei-na's own mansion. Not only that, her grandfather and everyone else were already waiting there. It was only then that she realized the chairman had hired Dongchan to be his personal butler. The reason he did so was to have Dongchan discipline his granddaughter on his behalf and correct her arrogant attitude. Of course, Hei-na refused and insisted on firing Dongchan, but only the chairman had the right to make that decision. At this time, Dongchan went to the loan sharks to borrow 50 million won in advance to pay off his debts. Naturally, they weren't willing to lend money so easily to a penniless man like him, unless he offered something valuable in return. Dongchan then said he was about to become the butler of the young lady of the Kang San group. With his confidence in his ability to charm women, he believed he could win over Hei-na and have her help him pay off his debt. The loan sharks didn't think much and agreed, but on the condition that Dongchan repay both the principal and interest 100 million won within a month. Overconfident in his skills, he had no idea how difficult things would soon become. On his first day of work, Dongchan was given a brief introduction to the mansion by the head butler. The kitchen was managed by a head chef invited from abroad. Even the other butlers came from prestigious universities and had been carefully selected. Surveillance cameras operated 24 hours a day, and anything done would be noticed. Mistakes resulted in point deductions from performance evaluations, so Dongchan swore to himself not to make any errors. Just then, a servant informed him that the young lady had summoned him to the fencing room. As soon as he arrived, Hei-na ambushed him and demanded to know why he had come here. Fortunately, Dongchan had combat experience and quickly turned the situation around, defeating Hei-na. He told her he hoped she could forget their past conflicts so that he could serve her properly, then bowed his head to apologize. Unexpectedly, Hei-na still struck him painfully. Yet even that wasn't enough for her to feel satisfied, and she began thinking of ways to get Dongchan fired. At that moment, the maids came in to help the young lady choose a gown for that evening's party. A new idea immediately flashed through Hei-na's mind, and she ordered Dongchan to go to the store to bring back the clothes for her. When they pulled out the outfits, Dongchan was stunned. The number of dresses was so large that he struggled to carry them all. As soon as he returned home, his co-workers rushed to him, asking where the chef was. They had heard that Dongchan would be bringing the foreign chef back to prepare for the banquet, leaving him completely confused. When he asked who told them that, he found out it was Hei-na. Furious, Dongchan stormed over to confront her, but he couldn't win the argument since only Hei-na had the authority to give orders there. With time running out and no room for delay, he hurried to the kitchen to ask for help. However, no one dared to go against the young lady's wishes, so they all refused. With no other choice, Dongchan had to do everything himself. He personally went into the kitchen to cook for the party. When all the guests had arrived, Hei-na was very pleased with herself, certain that Dongchan would fail. Unexpectedly, when she went outside, she saw that the banquet table had been beautifully prepared, which made her curious about what he was going to serve. But when the food was brought out, it was just ordinary fried rice. Hei-na immediately used that to find fault with Dongchan. However, thanks to his eloquence, he turned the situation around by saying that it was the favorite dish of a famous chef, which made everyone praise him. In the end, the party went smoothly. Dongchan finally breathed a sigh of relief, while Hei-na wasn't pleased at all. The next day, she made him follow her to the horse riding arena, and Dongchan felt uneasy, unsure what trick the young lady would pull this time. There, she suddenly caught sight of a familiar man. Hei-na instinctively ran toward him, not noticing that a horse was charging straight at her. Seeing the danger, Dongchan rushed forward to save her and anxiously asked if she was hurt, but her mind was only on that man. When she saw him about to get into his car and leave, Hei-na immediately grabbed a horse and chased after him. Dongchan hurried to his car so he wouldn't lose sight of her, while she only wanted to meet that man again. When they realized someone was following them, the man stopped his car and got out, asking if Hei-na was looking for him. But when she saw his face clearly, she realized she had mistaken him for someone else. At that moment, Dongchan also caught up. He apologized on behalf of the young lady, while she walked away filled with disappointment. Dongchan ran after her and caught her arm, only to realize she was crying. It was the first time he had ever seen the young lady so fragile. Hei-na sat alone, trying to hold back her tears, silently blaming herself for being so foolish, wondering why she still remembered her first love. Not long after, Dongchan brought bandages and antiseptic to treat her wound. He had noticed she was hurt after falling at the ranch, and couldn't let the young lady's hand be scarred. Though it was a small gesture, it made Hei-na feel warm inside. After this incident, the two of them gradually broke down the distance between them, and became a little closer. She even asked Dongchan to keep what had happened a secret. However, the ranch manager reported the incident to Butler Jiang, who wanted to know why the young lady had been injured. Because of his promise to Hei-na, Dongchan didn't dare reveal the truth, and took all the blame himself. As a result, the butler decided to fire him for failing to ensure her safety. But just then, Hei-na appeared and spoke up in Dongchan's defense, successfully allowing him to stay at the mansion. Her action surprised both the butler and Dongchan. Since it seemed that Hei-na no longer held any grudges against him, the butler immediately reported it to the chairman. Seeing this as a good sign that his granddaughter had changed, the chairman was delighted and began planning to marry her off, arranging another blind date. Hei-na still didn't know about it. She was wandering around the shopping mall with Dongchan when an acquaintance suddenly spotted them. When Dongchan saw Yui-ju running toward him, he panicked and tried to find a place to hide. Unable to see him, she called to ask where he was. Dongchan lied, saying he was working in Sokcho, making Yui-ju think she had mistaken someone else for him. After that, Hei-na was summoned to her grandfather's place. But when she ran into her cousin outside, she learned that the chairman had secretly arranged a blind date for her. Furious, she wanted to confront him, but Dongchan suddenly rushed out to stop her. He said that if Hei-na didn't want the blind date, it would be best for her to go home. Causing a scene inside would only make her grandfather lose face. Hei-na felt that what he said made sense, so she left, making Dongchan feel quite pleased with himself, since he feared that if she took a liking to the rich young master, his plan to win her over would be ruined. Unexpectedly, after leaving, Hei-na suddenly turned back, catching Dongchan off guard. She said that if she left like that, he would be punished by her grandfather, so she had to punch him once to make it easier for the old man to forgive him. Just as she was about to strike, a young man appeared and stopped her. It turned out to be the same person Hei-na had met at the ranch. Both she and Dongchan were confused as to why he was there, but Taeyun introduced himself as Hei-na's blind date partner. Hearing that, she was genuinely surprised but still acted arrogant, saying she had no intention of marrying him. Unexpectedly, Taeyun felt the same way. He said he came only to meet the chairman, so now he had no reason to stay any longer. Although Hei-na pretended not to care about that young master, once she returned home, she secretly searched for information about him online. When Dongchan saw her, she quickly covered her computer so he wouldn't find out. The reason Dongchan had come to see her was that she had received an invitation to a product launch event from her cousin. On the day of the event, Su-min was busy preparing, wanting to make herself the center of attention, but while she was promoting the product, Hei-na arrived and immediately drew all eyes toward her. Reporters surrounded Hei-na to take photos, leaving her cousin completely sidelined. Meanwhile, Dongchan encountered a woman delivering flowers. He wanted to help her, but when he realized it was someone he knew, he quickly fled. Not only his mother but also his sister were there. He couldn't let them find out that he was working as Hei-na's butler, so he hurried away and rushed to Hei-na's side, urging her to leave quickly. However, Hei-na insisted on staying because she had heard Taeyun would also be attending. While searching for him, she accidentally bumped into another man. It was the same rich young master she had met on a blind date and had once humiliated. The two immediately recognized each other, but she didn't want to waste time with him. When Hei-na tried to leave, he chased after her and blocked her way, so she made him fall into a banquet table once again, humiliating him in front of everyone. Furious, he grew a deep hatred for Hei-na. Because of that, she decided to leave to avoid further trouble and urged Dongchan to drive her away quickly. Just as they reached the basement, a group of thugs blocked their way, intending to kidnap the young lady. Dongchan immediately jumped into action, telling Hei-na to hide while he fought them off alone. He imagined himself as a hero, saving the damsel in distress, defeating them one by one. In his mind, Hei-na was moved and ran to embrace him, but that was all just his imagination. In reality, Dongchan and his creditors had planned to stage the scene to win Hei-na's favor, but the gang never showed up. Instead, another group of fierce-looking men suddenly blocked their path. They were actually sent by the humiliated young master, but Dongchan, thinking they were his own accomplices, bravely charged forward only to be beaten badly and forced to grab Hei-na and run for their lives. However, since there were too many of them, the two were soon surrounded. At that moment, Dongchan decided to sacrifice himself so the young lady could escape. He stayed behind to hold the gang off while Haina ran to call the police. She hadn't gone far when she ran into Taeyun. Seeing that they were in danger, he immediately stepped in to help. Together with Dongchan, they taught the thugs a harsh lesson and finally drove them away. But Hyena was so terrified that she collapsed to the ground. Both men rushed to her at once, asking if she was all right, but she ignored Dongchan and looked only at Taeyun, which made him realize she had started to take an interest in this man. When they got to the car, Taeyun offered to take Hyena home, but Dongchan stopped him. Because of that, Taeyun left, leaving her full of regret. When they returned home, the young lady couldn't stop talking about Taeyun as her life-saving hero and wanted to see him more often. Realizing how dangerous this was for his own plan, Dongchan decided to use his final strategy. That night, Hyena couldn't sleep, so she went out for a walk. Suddenly, she was drawn by the sound of a piano and followed it. It turned out that the one playing was Dongchan. Seeing that she was captivated, he was secretly overjoyed, but his musical ability was limited, and he couldn't play the pieces she requested, which disappointed her. She told Dongchan to find someone to fix her air conditioner, and he eagerly volunteered, taking the chance to ask her to hold the chair for him, then deliberately fell onto her, creating an intimate moment. When he saw her starting to blush, Dongchan moved to the next step. He went to the bathroom, washed his face, styled his hair to look as handsome as possible, and then returned to flirt with her, about to lean in for a kiss, when the butler suddenly opened the door. Seeing Dongchan's ridiculous act, the butler sternly reminded him of his position. The air conditioner issue was resolved quickly since it had only been unplugged, but being caught ruined Dongchan's plan, leaving him extremely frustrated. The next day, Hyena especially brought Dongchan to the shopping mall to buy clothes. He thought she was buying them for him, but they turned out to be gifts for Taeyun. She even went to his law office to deliver them in person, but since Taeyun wasn't there, she asked his assistant to hand them over and signed a document before leaving. Back home, she couldn't stop waiting for Taeyun's response, constantly asking Dongchan if anyone had called. When he said no, she looked disappointed. Just then, the phone rang, and she happily picked up. Hearing that Taeyun wanted to meet her, she quickly dressed up and rushed out, refusing to let Dongchan come along. When he insisted, she kicked him away. At that moment, Yuiju accidentally discovered that Dongchan was working there as a butler. Meanwhile, Hyena was full of confidence, believing her gift would win Taeyun's affection, but to her shock, he returned everything. Taeyun, being a man who rejected materialism and power, had chosen to become a lawyer precisely because he didn't value such things, so he couldn't accept her gifts. That deeply hurt Hyena. At the same time, Dongchan explained to Yuiju why he had lied to her. He was too embarrassed to admit that he was working as a butler for a young lady. Although she was angry at being deceived, Yuiju still understood his situation. That night, while cleaning the wine cellar, Dongchan heard a noise. Thinking it was a thief, he quietly went to check and was surprised to find Hyena there. After being rejected by Taeyun, she had been so upset that she sat there drinking alone and invited Dongchan to join her. While they were talking, they noticed a couple secretly having an affair in the same room. Hyena tried to stand up and scold them, but Dongchan covered her mouth, telling her to stay quiet, and they both sneaked out. Under the influence of alcohol, the distance between their social statuses seemed to disappear, and they laughed together like close friends. Afterward, he brought Hyena back to her room, watched her fall asleep, and couldn't help admiring her beauty. From that moment, he began to develop real feelings for her. The next day, the young lady was suddenly summoned by the chairman because the newspapers were filled with reports claiming that Hyena had signed a petition opposing the Kangsan Group's employee downsizing plan. It was an internal corporate matter, but her public involvement had made things worse. When her older brother found out, he immediately confronted Taeyun. However, Taeyun had no idea what was going on. It was actually his subordinate who had tricked Hyena into signing the paper. They argued heatedly and even got into a fight. Hyena happened to see them and intervened to stop them, explaining to the man that Taeyun knew nothing and that she was the one responsible. But Taeyun told her not to interfere in this issue. Watching him storm off angrily, Hyena chased after him, but that only made him even more frustrated. He cornered her against the wall and shouted, asking why she always had to meddle in other people's affairs. Was it because she liked him? The question left Hyena stunned and speechless. Right at that moment, Dongchan rushed in and punched Taeyun in the face, shouting that he had no right to treat his lady that way. As soon as he finished speaking, Dongchan immediately pulled Hyena away from there. Outside, he asked her if she really liked Taeyun, but afraid of losing face, Hyena refused to admit it and even vented her frustration on him. Feeling humiliated and upset after being treated coldly by Taeyun, she decided to return all the things she had bought for him to the store. There, Hyena happened to run into the same young master from before. She knew he was the one who had hired the gangsters. When he started bleeding because of her, he became furious and was about to attack her, but Dongchan stepped in to take the blow for her. The two men then began to fight. Meanwhile, Yuiju had been sent by Sua to Hyena's house to spy and find out what kind of relationship she had with Taeyun. She wanted to ask Dongchan about it, but he wasn't home. Coincidentally, Taeyun also came to the house, wanting to apologize to Hae-na for what had happened. At that moment, the butler received word that the young lady was in trouble and that a lawyer was needed. Taeyun volunteered to go to her. Thanks to him, the legal dispute with the young master was quickly settled. If the man insisted on going to court, Kang-san could countersue for hiring people to commit assault, so he had no choice but to give up. Everything ended peacefully, and Taeyun finally got the chance to apologize to Hae-na. Although she pretended not to care, deep down she was truly happy. The misunderstanding between them was cleared up. When it was time to leave, Taeyun offered to accompany her, but Dongchan immediately interrupted, insisting that she stay away from him. Unfortunately, his illegally parked car was towed away by the police, forcing Dongchan to stay behind, while Hae-na got the chance to go with Taeyun. However, Taeyun didn't drive a personal car, he usually traveled by bus. Worried that a young lady like Hae-na would find that inconvenient, he hesitated, but she, eager for the chance to be with the man she liked, lied that she often took the bus too and happily followed him on board. During the ride, they shared many stories, and Hae-na's feelings for Taeyun grew deeper and deeper. But when she returned home, the chairman threw several photos of her and Taeyun, taken secretly onto the table. He demanded to know what kind of relationship they had that would lead to such pictures. Hae-na explained that she wasn't dating him, but admitted that her feelings for him were real. Unexpectedly, the chairman reacted harshly. He forbade his granddaughter from having anything to do with anyone from Jusan. If he had known earlier that Taeyun opposed her father's company, he would never have arranged their blind date in the first place. He even had people book her a flight to send her abroad. Not wanting to leave Korea, Hae-na asked Dongchan for help. Since her departure would also ruin his plan, Dongchan had no choice but to act. The next morning, the mansion was in chaos when everyone discovered the young lady was missing. They all rushed to search for her, unaware that she had secretly hidden inside a flower delivery truck and managed to slip out successfully. Right after escaping, Hae-na called Dongchan so they could meet and plan their next move. Just as he was about to leave, the butler stopped him, suspicious that something was off, and insisted on going with him. Halfway there, Dongchan pretended that his aunt had been in a car accident and asked to leave first. Finally, he successfully reached Hae-na and arranged for her to stay at his aunt's house for the night, since checking into a hotel would almost certainly expose her location. Unable to find his granddaughter anywhere, the chairman grew extremely worried and summoned Dongchan, asking if he had been able to contact her. Dongchan said that Hae-na had told him she wouldn't return unless she could see Taeyun, so he sincerely advised the chairman not to try to stop her, explaining that even sending her abroad wouldn't keep her away. Butler Jang agreed with Dongchan's opinion, so the chairman reconsidered and decided not to oppose Hae-na meeting Taeyun anymore. Because of that, she finally agreed to return home. However, her grandfather had one condition: Hae-na had to start working at the company. On the surface, she obediently followed his wishes, but in reality, she only showed up for appearances and didn't actually do any work. What she truly cared about was how to make Taeyun fall for her. Just then, the phone rang. It was Taeyun calling, but Dongchan quickly answered first, claiming that Hae-na was in a meeting before hanging up. This made her furious, as she had been eagerly waiting for his call, only for her butler to ruin it. Dongchan told her that she should act a bit aloof and mysterious to pique a man's curiosity. The next day, when Taeyun called again to invite her to a charity event, Hae-na wanted to go badly, but followed Dongchan's advice and politely declined. However, not long after, she couldn't resist the urge to see him and snuck out. Unexpectedly, Dongchan caught her in the act. This time, though, he didn't stop her. Instead, he agreed to help. On the way there, Dongchan kept reminding her to let the other person wait a little, saying it would make her appearance more impactful. And sure enough, when Hae-na arrived, she immediately became the center of attention. Everyone there complimented her beauty, including Taeyun, who hadn't expected her to come after she'd turned him down. Wanting to be alone with him, Hae-na pretended she had left an important document at the company, using that as an excuse to send Dongchan away. With no one left to interfere, she was finally free to talk to Taeyun. During their time together, she listened to him sing, and her heart fluttered even more. What she didn't know was that someone else's heart was also stirring because of her. When Dongchan returned and saw her smiling so brightly, he unconsciously smiled too, not even realizing when he had begun to develop feelings for her. On the way home, Hae-na fell asleep in the car. Dongchan couldn't help but feel the urge to touch her, but she suddenly woke up, forcing him to stop and quickly get out to open the door for her. During the drive, she couldn't stop talking about Taeyun, even imagining what it would be like to kiss him. She then asked Dongchan how she could make their relationship progress faster. Unable to control himself, he suddenly kissed her. While Hae-na was still stunned and Speechless, Dongchan said she should kiss Taeyun unexpectedly just like that, to cover up what he had done. As soon as he finished speaking, Dongchan quickly walked away. After returning to his room and calming down, Dongchan began to regret what he had done, but it was already too late. Early the next morning, an angry Hae-na stormed in, carrying a wooden stick and beating him for daring to kiss her without permission. After that, she immediately arranged to have lunch with Taeyun. To impress him, she even donated 100 million won to charity without hesitation. Unexpectedly, when she arrived at the restaurant, she found her cousin there as well. Suah also liked Taeyun, and was always looking for chances to get close to him, which led to this awkward encounter. At the dining table, the two young ladies glared at each other. Hae-na had never liked her cousin, so when Suah tried to serve food to Taeyun, Hae-na spun the table away. Suah retaliated by telling Taeyun that Hae-na went to the company, but did nothing, exposing her laziness. Embarrassed in front of the man she liked, Hae-na immediately denied it, but when he asked what exactly she did at the company, she couldn't answer. Thankfully, Dongchan quickly stepped in to save her, saying that the young lady was secretly preparing a project and couldn't reveal details in front of a rival company's representative. Thanks to Dongchan, Hae-na managed to get through the situation and happily praised him afterward. But her joy didn't last long. Her grandfather suddenly called her to a board meeting. Still confused, Hae-na arrived only to be told by the chairman to present her upcoming project to everyone. That was when she realized Suah had tattled on her to set her up. Her uncle chimed in, saying that maybe Hae-na didn't have any project at all, which was why she was so hesitant. She had to quickly come up with an excuse and asked for a week's delay to prepare. Completely panicked and unsure what to do, Hae-na blamed Dongchan and made him take responsibility since he was the one who had mentioned the project in the first place. After thinking hard, Dongchan finally came up with an idea. Since Hae-na was clumsy at everything except fighting, he suggested she teach the female employees self-defense techniques. So Hae-na gathered everyone in the hall and began her demonstration. Dongchan, of course, became the punching bag for her practice. One by one, the female employees took turns practicing on him, leaving Dongchan sore all over. However, once he got home, he immediately uploaded a video of the session online, and it quickly went viral, receiving lots of positive feedback. Taeyun happened to see it too, and couldn't help but praise how amazing Hae-na was. Soon after, she called him to ask if he would participate in the project. Having a lawyer like Taeyun involved would help the female employees learn even more. Hae-na was so focused on Taeyun that she didn't even notice Dongchan had fallen ill because of her. The next day, when she didn't see him at work, she learned he was on sick leave but assumed he was faking it since he was usually very healthy. Later, when she met Taeyun, she got too excited during a demonstration and accidentally threw him to the floor. The fall was so painful that Taeyun cried out, then remarked that Dongchan must have suffered even worse, which was probably why he got sick. Hearing that, Hae-na finally realized that Dongchan was truly sick and hadn't been pretending as she had thought. Meanwhile, the chairman, upon hearing about his condition, also asked how Dongchan was doing. To be honest, at first he hadn't trusted him much, but after witnessing how much Hae-na had changed during that time, the chairman felt that Dongchan had done an excellent job, so he hoped Dongchan would continue to stay by her side. Soon after, it began to rain. Thinking that Hae-na had forgotten her umbrella, Dongchan couldn't rest easy, so he took one and stood outside waiting for her to return. As soon as he saw her car arriving, he hurried over to shield her from the rain. Hae-na, who had been worried about him, saw how energetic he was and felt somewhat reassured, thinking he must have recovered. Not long after, the loan shark showed up at his door. The repayment deadline had already passed, and they hadn't heard from Dongchan. He quickly told them that he was still trying to win over the young lady, and that he was almost there, begging them for more time. After hurriedly sending them away, he was unexpectedly caught by Hae-na. Curious, she asked who those people were, and Dongchan quickly lied that they were his friends who had come to give him a birthday present. Thanks to that excuse, he managed to fool her. Happily, Hae-na told Dongchan that she would be going to the ranch with Taeyun the next day. Worried that they might spend time alone together and that he would lose his chance, Dongchan insisted on accompanying her. On the way there, she suddenly handed him a gift. Since the day before had been his birthday, it was a handmade gift card decorated by Hae-na herself, along with a note she had written, "Happy birthday, Butler CO. I hope with this gift you can buy anything you want. Also, without my permission, you are not allowed to get sick, and you're not allowed to quit your job either. Thank you for always taking care of me all this time." Reading the letter, Dongchan was deeply moved. Thinking about how his original intention in getting close to her was for money, he began to feel guilty. Later, they arrived at the ranch, but Taeyun had been delayed by an unexpected matter and would arrive later. Hae-na first joined the others in harvesting crops. Since she had never done farm work before, she changed into clothes that looked more suitable for a beach trip than a field. While everyone else worked hard, Hae-na wandered around taking pictures, which prompted Dongchan to scold her right away. They spent the entire day working in the garden, but by evening, Taeyun still hadn't shown up. Haina told Dongchan to call him, only to hear that Taeyun couldn't make it after all, and could only apologize. Didn't that mean he had broken his promise? Deeply disappointed, Haina drank a lot of alcohol and ended up completely drunk, forcing Dongchan to carry her to her room to rest. Feeling lonely, she asked him to stay until she fell asleep. The next morning, Taeyun finally arrived with his new assistant. Even more unexpectedly, Haina's cousin heard he was there, and hurried over as well. Meanwhile, when Haina and Dongchan woke up and realized they were in the same room, they were both shocked. Thinking he had taken advantage of her, Haina immediately grabbed a pillow and started hitting Dongchan. They were still arguing loudly when they suddenly heard Taeyun's voice. He was knocking on the door to ask if Haina was awake, which made both of them freeze in panic. Afraid that he would misunderstand if he saw them like this, Haina told Dongchan to quickly put on his shirt and hide somewhere. While they were fumbling around, her cousin, too impatient to wait, opened the door, revealing a scene that looked highly suspicious. Dongchan hurriedly tried to explain that nothing had happened, saying that he had only stayed because he didn't feel safe leaving the young lady alone in a strange place, and that he must have fallen asleep by accident. But excuses like that only made things sound worse. Sua deliberately fanned the flames, and Taeyun, disappointed, walked away. Haina ran after him to explain, but he coldly said that whatever she and Dongchan did had nothing to do with him, so there was no need to explain. Being misunderstood by the man she liked left Haina feeling helpless, and she vented her frustration on Dongchan, watching how harshly she treated. Yuiju began to feel uncomfortable. Later, everyone was assigned to their respective work areas, the women to clean the animal pens, the men to do heavy lifting. The assistant there asked about the relationship between Haina and Dongchan. He casually said they were very close and always together, which was how that misunderstanding happened. Hearing this only made Taeyun even angrier, and he left again. At lunchtime, everyone gathered, but the atmosphere was tense. Seeing Taeyun continue to ignore Haina, Dongchan couldn't hold back and spoke up in her defense, asking what right he had to treat her like that. She hasn't done anything wrong. Do you even realize why a chaebol heiress like her had to come all the way here? Afraid that Dongchan would cause more trouble, Haina pulled him outside to talk, but they disagreed and ended up arguing. In anger, Haina shoved him, causing Dongchan to fall right as Yuiju saw it. Already harboring resentment toward the young lady, Yuiju refused to stay silent this time. She stepped forward to confront Haina, demanding an explanation, but not wanting to argue, Haina turned to leave, and Yuiju grabbed her by the hair to stop her. Taeyun had been waiting for a long time, but when no one returned, he started searching for them. When he arrived and saw the two women fighting, he rushed over to break them apart. It was then that he and Haina finally had a chance to talk. Taeyun wanted to make peace, but Haina said, "What's the point of you saying that now? Haven't you always been cold and indifferent to me? Do you think I came here because I like farming? No, it's because I like you. But how could you treat me so cruelly?" Without waiting for him to respond, Haina turned and walked away. When she didn't come back for a long time, Taeyun grew worried and started looking everywhere. Eventually, he found her sitting alone at the edge of the ranch. Without thinking, he ran up and wrapped his arms around her. At that moment, he finally understood what it felt like to fear losing someone important. From a distance, Dongchan witnessed the two of them together and realized that he could no longer fit into this relationship. Taeyun finally confessed his feelings to Haina. He liked her too, so their love was no longer one-sided. When it was time to return, his assistant tried to give the couple more time together by suggesting that he ride with Dongchan instead. Though Dongchan didn't want to, seeing Haina so happy made him unable to ruin her joy. So, throughout the entire trip back, she sat with Taeyun. When they arrived home, neither of them wanted to say goodbye. This time, it was Taeyun who took the initiative, telling her he would contact her first, which made Haina so happy that she threw her arms around Dongchan. The next day, she proudly told her grandfather that she had a boyfriend. The chairman couldn't believe that his granddaughter had actually managed to win over the young lawyer, so he asked the butler to contact him. Afterward, the chairman also decided to meet Yuiju's mother to learn more about Dongchan. He had recently heard that it was Dongchan's birthday, but the date didn't match the one in his official records, which made him suspicious. The woman explained that since Dongchan's parents had been too busy at the time, they hadn't registered his birth until December. The butler also asked about the loan sharks who had come looking for him, but she quickly made excuses to cover for Dongchan. Meanwhile, knowing that Yuiju and Dongchan were still upset with each other over what had happened at the ranch, Haina arranged a lunch for the two of them to reconcile and offered to pay for everything. While she took advantage of the butler's absence to go on a date with her boyfriend, Dongchan and Yuiju sat together at the restaurant. Even as he ate, he kept glancing at his phone, waiting for a call from the young lady. But when it finally rang, it wasn't her, it was Taeyun, saying he would take Haina home himself, so Dongchan didn't need to pick her up. Late that night, when Dongchan still hadn't come back, Haina grew anxious and called him, urging, "Come home right now." While on his way back, he received a call from his aunt, warning him that the butler butler was suspicious of him and that he needed to be careful from now on. Hearing that made him even more uneasy. When he met Haina, she mentioned that she wanted to set him up with Yuiju. Even though the person Dongchan liked wasn't her, Haina didn't know who it was. She simply wanted to match him with Yuiju because, in her eyes, Dongchan was a genuinely good man. Hearing her words, Dongchan felt even more ashamed. He wasn't at all the good man Haina imagined him to be, so he told her not to trust anyone so easily, not even him. Later, Dongchan was assigned to work in the surveillance room. Suddenly, the monitors displayed footage of him meeting with the loan sharks, leaving him stunned. From behind came the butler's voice. He had investigated everything and already knew that Dongchan had been lying, but he wanted to understand why. Dongchan explained that he hadn't wanted his debt to affect Yuiju and her mother, so he had lied and said the chairman had lent him the money, when in fact he had borrowed it from loan sharks. Years ago, he had done the same to pay for his mother's hospital bills, but even then, he still couldn't save her. Afraid he would be fired after confessing, Dongchan braced himself, but to his surprise, the butler allowed him to continue working at the mansion. The next day, Taeyun was invited to the mansion to meet the chairman. Knowing she was about to see him, Hyuna eagerly prepared, dressing up beautifully to impress her boyfriend. As soon as they met, Taeyun gave her a flower and complimented her, making her very happy. Then she led him to her grandfather. The chairman asked her to wait outside while he spoke privately with Taeyun. Even though he knew the two were dating, the chairman still couldn't feel at ease. He wanted to know what Taeyun would choose between love and his career. Without hesitation, Taeyun said he would choose Haina and work hard to be worthy of the heiress of Kangsan Group. The sight of the two of them playing the piano together looked so romantic. The other servants watched with admiration, thinking they could never compare to Haina and Taeyun. We're just servants with barely any money. How could we ever reach that high? Hearing these words, Dongchan felt even more inferior, realizing that somewhere along the way, he had developed feelings for Haina. However, he didn't know that the person he had always thought of as a younger sister actually liked him too. Because she suspected that Dongchan had borrowed money from loan sharks and was working there because of it, Yuiju told him to quit. She and her mother would help him pay off his debt, but Dongchan refused, unwilling to drag them into his problems. Unable to convince him, Yuiju left feeling hurt and cried non-stop on the way home. Haina, meanwhile, was curious why Yuiju had become like that. Dongchan couldn't reveal the truth and could only say he had done something very bad. Something bad, she said. I don't think you're a bad person at all. You once told me not to trust anyone, but I believe you really are a good man. Haina's words made Dongchan feel deeply ashamed. He couldn't keep deceiving her any longer, so he decided to meet with the loan sharks and told them he would not take a single one from Haina. His defiance enraged them, and they beat him brutally for breaking their agreement. They warned that they would not let him go unless he brought them the full 100 million won. After being badly beaten, Dongchan returned home in a bladed-by, miserable state. Haina, annoyed that the butler had returned late, was about to scold him when she saw his injured face. Worried, she asked what had happened, but he lied, saying he was fine. Relieved, she told him to teach her how to ride a bicycle the next day, not knowing that Dongchan had already asked the butler for permission to quit, and that tomorrow would be his last day of work. That day, Dongchan personally taught the young lady how to ride a bicycle. He even brought a homemade lunch for her and reminded Haina that she should also learn to cook. Even if there were chefs in the house, she should still know how to make something herself. Why should I learn to cook when I already have you around? Later, I'll find you a good wife and make sure your children go to school properly. If you ever want to get married, you have to tell me first. The more she spoke, the heavier Dongchan's heart became. The more Dongchan listened, the less he could bring himself to tell Haina that he had quit his job. The last thing he could do for her was to help her learn to ride a bike. When she finally managed to ride on her own, he stood behind her, silently watching, tears falling from his eyes. Goodbye, my lady. As much as I want to stay by your side, I can't come back to you anymore. When Haina returned, she was smiling brightly, proudly telling the butler that she had learned how to ride a bicycle. But the servants rushed in to tell her that Dongchan had resigned. By that time, he had already packed his things and said goodbye to the chairman. Although the old man was reluctant to see him go, he knew letting Dongchan leave was probably the best choice for him. Before officially walking out of the mansion, Dongchan went to look at Haina's room from outside one last time. Just then, she arrived and demanded to know why he was quitting had he been fired. She wanted to keep him by her side, but he refused, leaving her disappointed and turning away. At that moment, he suddenly called out her name. I'm no longer the butler here, he said softly, so I want to call your name just once. Haina, goodbye. As soon as he finished speaking, Dongchan turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, eyes filled with sorrow. From the day Dongchan left, Haina was no longer the cheerful young lady she used to be. She became irritable and short-tempered, reverting to the difficult heiress she once was. Without Dongchan's presence, she often mistook other butlers for him. Every time she came home from work, she would ask the servants if Dongchan had called. Having heard nothing from him for so long, she grew grew increasingly anxious and restless. When she arrived at the company, Hae-na immediately asked Yui-ju about Dongchan's situation. As soon as she learned that he was working at a flower shop, she went there right away. She wanted him to return as her butler, but Dongchan coldly refused, saying he didn't want to work for her anymore because it was too exhausting, and besides, he didn't want to spend his whole life serving others. Unable to persuade him, Hae-na left in disappointment. The next day, during a board meeting, everyone criticized Hae-na for signing a document approving the upgrade of an e-commerce website that had been losing money and was about to be shut down. They demanded to know whether she had any plans to revive it, but Hae-na had no idea what they were talking about. She had signed the papers without even reading them carefully. In front of the board, she admitted that it was her mistake and walked out, leaving her grandfather humiliated. Back home, the two argued heatedly. The chairman asked how he could ever entrust the company to someone as irresponsible as her, but Hae-na didn't care about running the conglomerate. She said he could just give it to her uncle or Sua instead. Enraged, the chairman suffered a heart attack. He was immediately rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Seeing him like that, Hae-na was overcome with guilt. If anything happened to him, she knew she would live in regret for the rest of her life. The news spread quickly, and reporters swarmed around her, bombarding her with relentless questions, leaving her overwhelmed and panicked. Just then, Dongchan appeared in time. He protected her and helped her escape from the crowd, successfully getting her to the rooftop. But Hae-na kept insisting on going to her grandfather's room to see him. Fearing that the reporters were still nearby, Dongchan tried to stop her. He comforted her gently and placed his coat over her shoulders. However, the moment Tae-yoon appeared, everything Dongchan had done became meaningless. Hae-na ran straight into Tae-yoon's arms, forgetting that Dongchan was even there. In truth, the chairman's condition was far more serious than just exhaustion. He had suffered a myocardial infarction. The butler secretly arranged to transfer him to the United States for surgery, but told everyone else that the chairman was simply resting due to fatigue. Unfortunately, while the butler was briefing a colleague, someone overheard the conversation. Representative Kang, who had long been waiting for this moment, immediately leaked the news to the media and planned to seize full control of the corporation while the chairman was incapacitated. Upon learning this, the butler personally brought Dongchan to meet the chairman, hoping he would return to take care of Hae-na while the chairman was away. Without the chairman present, he feared Representative Kang would take advantage of the situation and push his granddaughter aside. On the day the chairman was preparing to leave for the airport, Hae-na showed up dragging her suitcase, insisting on going with her grandfather. No one could stop her except for Dongchan. In the end, he agreed to return to work, and thanks to his gentle persuasion, Hae-na finally calmed down and obediently saw her grandfather off. However, the next day, she refused to go to the company, forcing Dongchan to take drastic measures. He lifted her up, carried her into the room, made her change into proper clothes, and then pulled her into the car to take her to work. Before she entered the meeting room, Dongchan carefully coached her on what to say in order to deal with Representative Kang. Thanks to his advice, when Hae-na faced Kang and the board members alone, she handled the situation smoothly, saving her grandfather from embarrassment. On the way back, she curiously asked why Dongchan had agreed to return, even after rejecting her before. Was it because her grandfather offered him a higher salary? Of course, it wasn't because of money. Dongchan truly wanted to tell her that he came back because he liked her, but saying it would be pointless. After all, Hae-na was still completely in love with the lawyer. The reason she had learned to ride a bicycle in the first place was because of Tae-yoon. Meanwhile, Iwi-jo had tracked down the loan sharks. After meeting them, she discovered that Dongchan was burdened with a massive debt and had signed an agreement to win Hae-na's heart as part of the repayment. Feeling desperate and not knowing how to help him, she went to Tae-yoon to ask whether a handwritten debt contract like that had any legal validity. Since he didn't know the exact contents of the document, Tae-yoon couldn't give her a definite answer, and because Yui-ju couldn't show it to him, she decided to try borrowing money instead. But Tae-yoon didn't have such a large sum, leaving her disheartened. She invited him out for a drink to ease her mind. Tae-yoon also called both Hae-na and Dongchan to join them. Seeing the man she liked being friendly with another woman, Yui-ju couldn't hold back her emotions. She began talking about Dongchan's past, which made him nervous that his old job at a bar would be exposed. Since Yui-ju was quite drunk, Dongchan offered to take her home. When the two of them were alone, she confessed that she already knew everything about his debt and his real reason for approaching Hae-na. "But why did you come back even after quitting?" she asked. "Is it because you've fallen for that young lady?" Dongchan didn't dare to admit it. He only said that he couldn't bear to leave Hae-na alone, even though the next day was the final deadline to repay his debt. He didn't care what the loan sharks might do to him. All he wanted was to help Hae-na. To prepare her for the upcoming challenge, he began coaching her on how to deliver her presentation so she could stand before the shareholders with full confidence. But at that very moment, the loan sharks were already on the move to find Dongchan, and by chance, they encountered He-na first. From upstairs, Yui-ju happened to see what was happening and panicked. She rushed to tell Dongchan that the loan sharks were meeting with He-na. Meanwhile, the men were trying to avoid her, but unfortunately, Sua ran into them. Earlier, they had mistaken Sua for He-na and almost kidnapped the wrong person, so the moment she saw them, she immediately recognized who they were. This time, there was no way for them to deny anything, so they claimed they had only been following Dongchan's orders. Hearing that, He-na was stunned. She never imagined that the person she trusted most would betray her like this. Furious, she slapped him across the face. Dongchan, thinking that He-na still didn't know about the debt, felt somewhat relieved. But behind his back, she secretly went to meet the loan sharks herself and discovered everything he had been hiding. However, He-na didn't show any anger. She feared that if she said anything, Dongchan might leave her, so she kept silent and endured it alone. Because of that, her frustration built up inside, and she began lashing out at the servants. In a fit of temper, she knocked over a tray of food, and a piece of glass hit the housekeeper's face, injuring her. Seeing the young lady suddenly act this way, Dongchan couldn't stay silent and asked her why she had done such a thing. Irritated and defensive, He-na argued back. Later, she went to see her boyfriend to calm herself down. After spending the day with Tae-yoon, her mood improved a lot. She asked him, "What should I do if someone I trusted betrayed me?" Tae-yoon said that person must have had their own reasons for doing so. If it were him, he would give that person another chance because he believed no one was born bad. Sometimes, circumstances just push people to make wrong choices. Taking Tae-yoon's words to heart, He-na decided to trust Dongchan one more time. The next day, when he asked for leave to go meet someone, she immediately guessed that he was heading to see the loan sharks and called the police. The officers arrived just in time to arrest them all, shutting down the entire operation. He-na personally tore up Dongchan's debt contract, freeing him from all his obligations. After everything that had happened, all she wanted was a confession from him, for him to be honest about everything. If he could just tell the truth, she would forgive him and pretend none of it ever happened. But even when given the chance, Dongchan couldn't bring himself to speak. He was too afraid of losing her. Yet his silence only made her more disappointed. As she turned to leave, He-na said that she already knew everything, that the only reason he had approached her was because of his debt. She said she never wanted to see him again and officially dismissed him from his position. Meanwhile, Sua and her father successfully hacked into He-na's computer and discovered the full details of the project she was preparing to launch. Naturally, they had no intention of letting her succeed and immediately devised a plan to bring her down. The next morning, as He-na was getting ready to go to the company, she was surprised to see Dongchan still in the mansion. He would rather shamelessly endure her scolding than break his promise to the chairman. No matter what He-na said, Dongchan was determined not to quit. Later, He-na began presenting her project to the board of directors. Representative Kang seized the opportunity to attack her, showing everyone a nearly identical project that his daughter had supposedly developed a month earlier. He accused He-na of plagiarism, leaving her flustered and humiliated in front of the shareholders. Because of that, He-na's mood worsened dramatically. She vented her frustration on Dongchan, even though he was only trying to give her advice. Then, seeing him laughing and chatting happily with Yui-ju, she felt an unfamiliar sense of irritation and discomfort rising inside her. At a restaurant later that day, when everyone finally had the rare chance to eat together, He-na made a cruel joke saying that Dongchan, being both a good dancer and popular with women, would make a perfect gigolo. Her words were so cutting that Yui-ju couldn't hold back her anger. She raised her voice, but Dongchan stopped her before things escalated. The meal ended awkwardly, and no one left happy. Afterward, Tae-yoon took He-na somewhere private to talk. He had recently noticed the strange tension between her and Dongchan, how they had gone from being close to distant, almost like a couple in the middle of a fight. He-na immediately denied it, saying that she and Dongchan were nothing more than employer and servant. When she returned to the office and saw Dongchan asleep while waiting for her, her heart softened. She truly wanted to forgive him, but the pain of his deception still lingered too deeply to forget. Later, He-na called Dongchan to the bar where he used to work. She wanted to see how he had charmed women back then. Dongchan couldn't stand being treated like that. He angrily demanded to know what she really wanted from him, then pressed her back against the wall, their faces inches apart. His voice was low and trembling as he asked, "Is this what you want from me, He-na?" In that moment, He-na hesitated, but in the end, she pushed Dongchan away. She ran forward without realizing a truck was speeding toward her. At the very last second, Dongchan managed to pull her to safety, yet even his embrace couldn't calm the storm of emotions raging inside her. Though he wanted to take her home, Haina chose to walk away alone. The next day, Dongchan suddenly requested leave, without saying where he was going. He brought a bouquet of flowers to visit his mother's grave. Meanwhile, unable to bear seeing Dongchan constantly humiliated by Haina, Yuiju decided to confront her directly. It was then that Haina finally learned the real reason Dongchan had once worked as a gigolo. He had done it to pay for his mother's medical bills, working himself to the bone, taking on any job he could, even the most degrading ones. For a son who had sacrificed so much for his family, Yuiju said he didn't deserve to be looked down on like that. Even if Dongchan had initially approached Haina to repay his debt, he had long since abandoned that plan and had always stayed by her side, helping her in every way he could. Upon realizing this, Haina was filled with regret. That night, she waited for Dongchan to return so she could apologize. She admitted that her actions had been cruel, but it was only because she trusted him too much, and when she felt betrayed, her anger had gotten the better of her. Dongchan didn't blame her. He admitted that he was the one who had been wrong first, and then he confessed that he liked her. He explained that the reason he had come back was to make amends for deceiving her, but he promised that from now on, he would try his best to forget his feelings so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. After that conversation, all the misunderstandings between them were finally cleared, and they returned to the warm, familiar closeness they once shared. Knowing that Sua had stolen Haina's project files, Dongchan asked Yuiju to help him investigate. That evening, he took Haina to a small roadside diner. They talked for a long time, and Dongchan told her everything about his past. Now, there seemed to be no more secrets between them. When it was time to go home, Dongchan playfully suggested that Haina drive him for once, and she happily agreed. At that very moment, Taeyun was eagerly waiting for his girlfriend to return. But when he saw her arrive with Dongchan and driving the car herself, his suspicions about their relationship grew stronger. Haina, being her usual carefree self, didn't notice anything wrong. She even cheerfully told her boyfriend that she and Dongchan had eaten dinner together at a street-side diner. Just then, she received a phone call from her grandfather and stepped away to answer it. While she was gone, Taeyun bluntly warned Dongchan not to get too close to his girlfriend, destroying whatever good impression Dongchan had once had of him. The next day, as she prepared for a picnic with Taeyun, Haina personally made kimbap for the two of them. Since she was clumsy in the kitchen, Dongchan helped her with every step. Haina wanted to invite him along on the picnic, but he already had plans that day meeting Yuiju, as a way of making up for the time he had neglected someone he considered a younger sister. They spent the day walking around the city, laughing and having fun together, and Dongchan even bought Yuiju a new dress. Meanwhile, Haina was also enjoying a happy time with her boyfriend. She proudly brought the kimbap she had made for Taeyun to try and, without realizing it, mention Dongchan again. Every time she did, Taeyun's jealousy flared. He didn't like how dependent his girlfriend seemed to be on her butler, but Haina explained that the reason the two of them were even together was because of Dongchan's help. She hoped Taeyun would put aside his resentment toward him. On the other side, Yuiju did everything she could to convince Dongchan to quit working for Haina. You spend every day serving her. How can you ever build a future for yourself? But Dongchan couldn't bring himself to leave. He wanted to stay quietly by Haina's side, protecting her in his own way. His words deeply hurt Yuiju, and she left with tears streaming down her face. Unable to bear the pain of keeping her feelings bottled up any longer, Yuiju ran to the mansion to see Dongchan. Not only did she apologize for what had happened earlier, but she also confessed her love for him. Before Dongchan could react, Yuiju suddenly kissed him. Haina happened to see it, and she froze in shock. She tried to pretend she didn't care, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stop thinking about what she had just witnessed. When Yuiju left, Dongchan noticed Haina standing there. He wanted to explain, but before he could say anything, they received word that the chairman had returned. Upon hearing this, Haina's face lit up. She ran to embrace her grandfather, overjoyed to see him again after such a long time. She had missed him dearly, and hearing that his surgery had gone well filled her with relief. Soon after, Representative Kang's family rushed in, pretending to share in the excitement. They had assumed the chairman wouldn't make it back in time for the company's anniversary celebration. The real reason he returned earlier than expected was precisely because of that event during the ceremony. He planned to announce Haina as his successor. Hearing this shocking news, Representative Kang was furious and immediately began plotting to sabotage her. On the day of the anniversary, Haina was determined not to make any mistakes. She practiced her speech repeatedly, doing her best to stay composed. Seeing how nervous she was, Dongchan brought her a glass of water to help her relax. But as she reached for it, she accidentally dropped the glass. When she bent down to pick it up, a shard cut her hand. Dongchan quickly grabbed a handkerchief and gently wrapped it around her wound, his touch both tender and caring. Unfortunately, the scene was witnessed by Yuiju, and unable to bear it any longer, she quietly turned and left, her heart breaking. By coincidence, Yui Ju ran into Tae-yoon, who was also looking for Hae-na, determined not to let anyone steal his girlfriend away. She told him everything about Dongchan's original plan to get close to Hae-na to pay off his debt, and how, in the process, he had genuinely fallen in love with her. At the banquet, the chairman stood before all the guests and shareholders, announcing that Hae-na would officially become the sole heir of the conglomerate. Just as she was invited on stage to give her speech, Representative Kang had his associates cause a disturbance. They all stood up in unison, objecting loudly and declaring that Hae-na was unfit to lead, then stormed out together. Hae-na froze in panic, not knowing what to do, and instinctively looked toward Dongchan. He gave her a small nod, signaling her to continue. Gathering her courage, Hae-na firmly called out to the departing crowd, asking them to stop and listen. She admitted that she wasn't talented or experienced, but since she had been chosen as the heir, she would give her all to live up to everyone's expectations. And if, after all her efforts, she still failed to earn their trust, she would willingly step aside for someone more capable. After the ceremony, Tae-yoon, consumed by anger, punched Dongchan in the face before he could react. He couldn't believe that the man who had always protected Hae-na was the same one who had once planned to use her. Tae-yoon didn't want such a deceitful person anywhere near his girlfriend, so he demanded that Dongchan stay away from her for good. Later that night, while driving Hae-na home, Tae-yoon proposed to her. At first, she was stunned, thinking he was joking, but Tae-yoon was completely serious. Now that she had just become the heir of a powerful conglomerate and was about to get married, Hae-na couldn't help but feel conflicted. She later told Dongchan about the proposal and asked for his opinion. Instead of looking hurt, he sincerely congratulated her. After all, once she got married, he would no longer need to serve as her butler. The person protecting her from then on would be Tae-yoon. Shortly afterward, Dongchan met with Tae-yoon in person. He agreed to leave Hae-na and submitted his resignation voluntarily. He only asked one thing: that Tae-yoon trust her completely. The feelings Dongchan had for Hae-na were one-sided. Meanwhile, during a shareholders' meeting, Representative Kang's faction sought to corner Hae-na by imposing an impossible condition. She had to increase the company's sales by 15%. The task was nearly impossible, but Hae-na accepted it anyway, knowing that it was the only way she could prove herself and earn their respect. To help her, Dongchan stayed by her side every step of the way, even though this was his final day working for her. Whenever Hae-na and her team worked overtime, he was there, quietly supporting them. He became an irreplaceable companion to her, though both knew their time together was running out. Before leaving for good, Dongchan wanted to give Hae-na one final gift. He took her up to the rooftop so they could watch the sunrise together, just as he used to do with his mother back when she was still healthy. As the morning light spread across the sky, he quietly told her that he was resigning. Though Hae-na felt a deep sadness inside, she knew she no longer had any reason to keep him by her side. After he left, she informed Tae-yoon of the news. He admitted that he was the one who had pressured Dongchan into resigning, and asked if he had gone too far. But to Hae-na, it was the best decision for everyone involved. It spared them all from further awkwardness, so she didn't blame him. Despite all of Hae-na's hard work, the company's sales not only failed to rise but actually dropped into the negatives. Frustrated, she scolded her subordinates and demanded to know if there were any other solutions. Someone then proposed a plan, but it was unethical. Even so, Hae-na chose to go through with it. The company's revenue quickly skyrocketed, earning her praise from her grandfather. But deep down, she knew the truth that it was built on deception. The fear of being exposed weighed heavily on her mind. Time and again, she found herself staring at a photo of Dongchan, wondering what he would do if he were in her place. Since his departure, she had missed him more with each passing day. Seeing a couple practicing how to ride a bicycle reminded her of their moments together, and she couldn't help but smile through her longing. Even Hae-na herself couldn't make sense of her feelings anymore. When Tae-yoon presented her with an engagement ring, she didn't feel the happiness she thought she should. Instead, she hesitated, unable to give him an answer. She didn't even know who her heart truly belonged to, Tae-yoon or Dongchan. Weighed down by confusion and sorrow, she went to a bar to drink. Seeing how drunk she was, the staff called Dongchan to pick her up. The moment she saw him, Hae-na's eyes lit up. Overjoyed, she playfully pinched his cheek. Dongchan tried to pull her hand away, but in the struggle, their lips accidentally touched. After that, he managed to take her home safely. She was so intoxicated that she could barely stand, so he carried her on his back the rest of the way. Meanwhile, Sua had already tracked down the female employee who had suggested the fraudulent plan to Hae-na. She and her Wachan father immediately reported everything to the chairman, who was furious and deeply disappointed. When confronted, Hae-na didn't realize how serious her mistake was. She tried to justify herself, insisting that since she had purchased the products with her own money, it couldn't be considered market manipulation. The more she spoke, the angrier her grandfather became. Finally, he erupted in rage, ordering her to leave the house immediately and forbidding anyone from helping her. From a wealthy heiress, Hae-na suddenly became a wanderer. Even her bank cards were frozen, leaving her unable to access any funds. With the little cash she had left, she managed to rent a small, cheap hotel room. That night, starving and desperate, she realized she barely had enough money to buy food. Calling her friends for help proved useless, so she resorted to drinking a bottle of wine from the hotel minibar just to fill her stomach. The next morning, Haina woke up in shock. She was in Dongchan's house. It turned out that, in her drunken state the night before, she had called him to come get her. The call history on her phone was undeniable. Since a night had already passed, Dongchan assumed the chairman's anger must have subsided, so he decided to take her back home. However, this time, the chairman wasn't as forgiving as before. He refused to pardon her and ordered the butler to throw her out of the house. Seeing that her grandfather truly meant it, Haina didn't try to argue. Upset, she stormed out and Dongchan hurried after her. He knew he couldn't just let her wander aimlessly, so he brought her to Taeyun's house. Before leaving, he told her to reconcile with her boyfriend. But before Dongchan could walk away, Taeyun appeared and caught sight of them together. After seeing them in such situations again and again, Taeyun could no longer believe their relationship was purely innocent. How could Dongchan always know about Haina's problems? Before he did, even about her being kicked out of the house. Realizing how much pain she had caused Taeyun, Haina felt overwhelmed with guilt and decided to leave, dragging her suitcase behind her. Meanwhile, the butler called Dongchan to meet privately. He revealed that the chairman hadn't expelled Haina because of the company scandal. He had done it to force her to grow up. In truth, the chairman had never undergone surgery. His blood vessels were severely blocked, and he only had a limited time left to live. That was why he wanted Haina to learn independence, and he begged Dongchan to watch over her once more. Just then, Dongchan received a call from Taeyun, telling him that Haina had disappeared. Alarmed, he immediately set out to search for her everywhere, but there was no trace. Exhausted, he finally returned home, only to find Haina sitting right outside his gate. Unable to contain his frustration, Dongchan scolded her for making everyone worry so much. This time, he swore he wouldn't let her run off again. He arranged for Haina to stay at his place and even gave her Yuiju's old room to live in. Early the next morning, Dongchan barged into Haina's room to wake her up. From today onward, he would begin teaching her how to survive on her own. If one day the chairman were no longer around, Haina would need to learn how to work and earn a living instead of relying on others for everything. After breakfast, she was required to help out at the flower shop to pay for her living expenses. On her very first day, Haina clumsily broke a flower pot. When Dongchan told her to pay for it, she still acted like a spoiled heiress and said he could just put it on her tab, she'd pay him back later. Not long after, Taeyun showed up, furious, and grabbed her hand to drag her away. He couldn't stand seeing his girlfriend constantly around another man, but when he saw the sadness in her eyes, he realized he had gone too far and pulled her into an embrace, apologizing softly. After making up with him, Haina tried applying for a job at a clothing store, but within a few sentences, she was already arguing with the owner. Things nearly turned physical, but Dongchan rushed in just in time to stop them. He scolded her earnestly. If she kept her fiery temper like this, how could she ever manage once the chairman was gone? Dongchan pleaded for her to understand what he was trying to teach. Later, to cheer her up, he cooked tteokbokki for her, the same dish her mother used to make when she was a child. Meanwhile, Taeyun met directly with the chairman to formally ask for Haina's hand in marriage. The chairman gladly agreed, happy that his granddaughter would be getting married before his time came. Around the same time, housekeeper Jung came all the way to visit Haina out of concern. Seeing that she was healthy, living well, and even learning to do housework, the old woman finally left in peace. Today it's Haina's turn to cook, so Yuiju reminded her to go to the kitchen quickly. But since Haina had no idea how to cook, Dongchan stepped in to take her place. Because she didn't cook, Haina was assigned to wash the blankets instead. She was clumsy and struggled to do it alone, so Dongchan came to help. They ended up laughing and playing around as they worked, forgetting their exhaustion completely. Watching Haina working so diligently, Dongchan couldn't help but feel proud. She had really grown, no longer the arrogant, spoiled heiress she once was. He told her he liked the person she had become, and those words made Haina restless that night. She kept thinking about what the housekeeper had told her before, that the man who loves her for who she truly is, not for her status or wealth, is the one who truly loves her. The next day, Taeyun officially brought his girlfriend home to meet his parents. He wanted them to know that this was the woman he intended to marry. But their meeting was abruptly interrupted by a sudden phone call. Haina's aunt called to inform her that Dongchan had been in an accident. The moment she heard it, panic washed over her. Without a second thought, Haina left in the middle of the meeting and rushed toward the hospital. Taeyun tried desperately to stop her, but when he saw the look of sheer worry on her pale face, he realized in her heart that man mattered more than he ever did. When Haina arrived at the hospital, she found Dongchan sitting up, alive and mostly unharmed, just a few scratches. Shock and relief flooded her all at once. Dongchan, confused, asked why she had come running all the way there. Haina told him it was because she had been too worried to stay still, and before he could say another word, she leaned forward and kissed him. Dongchan froze. He couldn't believe that Haina, the girl he'd secretly loved all this time, actually felt the same. If this was a dream, he wished never to wake. But seeing the way her eyes overflowed with affection, he knew it was real. Meanwhile, Ju anxiously waited for them to come home. When she finally saw them, hand in hand, glowing with happiness, her heart sank. She realized then that their relationship had crossed the line of no return. Overwhelmed, she ran straight to Taeyun to tell him everything. But Taeyun didn't even react with anger, he just looked hollow. He finally understood that he was the one standing in the way of their love. Feeling defeated, he decided to let go. Later that night, he drank himself into oblivion. Seeing him so helpless, Ju took it upon herself to bring him somewhere safe. Not knowing his address, she brought him to a nearby motel. In his drunken haze, Taeyun mistook her for Haina and pulled her into his arms. Back at Dongchan's house, he was filled with both joy and fear. He was finally with the woman he loved, but deep down, he dreaded the day. The chairman found out because that day would surely be the end for them. For now, all he wanted was to stay by Haina's side, even if it was only until that day came. They ended up falling asleep together outdoors, and by morning, Haina's aunt discovered them. Because of the cold night air, Dongchan developed a fever, and Haina never left his side, caring for him tenderly until he fully recovered. Once he was well again, she finally felt ready to face Taeyun and explain everything. But when she went to his office, he was nowhere to be found. Taeyun had gone to the countryside, to the same farm as before, seeking peace and a way to let go of the love that had already slipped away. Even though Haina didn't get to see him, she knew it was for the best. She was the one who had hurt him, and if they ever met again, all she could offer was an apology. Dongchan too reminded her that love wasn't something eternal, and that she shouldn't let guilt hold her back from moving on. Afterward, the two began visiting various places to research the market and brainstorm new ideas for Haina's website. Their results were so impressive that Representative Kang grew restless, afraid she would once again return to the company and stand in his way. Soon, Haina received her very first job, painting a kindergarten. She confidently began negotiating the price with the principal, but Dongchan quickly covered her mouth before she could say something reckless. It had been hard enough to find her this job, and he wasn't about to let her mess it up. Haina eagerly mixed paint and began decorating the walls, adding bright colors and adorable characters that delighted the children. When she finally finished, she received her first ever paycheck. Overjoyed, she counted it again and again, her face glowing with pride. To celebrate, she invited Dongchan to dinner, but he declined, saying he needed to visit the chairman. When the chairman heard that his granddaughter had found work and earned her own money, he was overjoyed. It meant that Haina had finally matured and lived up to his hopes. He decided it was time for her to return home and to the company. Meanwhile, Taeyun, who still couldn't forget Haina, came to see her. Even though he knew she now loved another man, he said he would wait for her nonetheless. But when Dongchan returned from meeting the chairman, he was quietly despondent. He understood that once she went back to the company, their relationship would inevitably end. That night, the two shared a bittersweet celebration by the Han River. The evening was peaceful, the city lights shimmering on the water. Using the money she'd earned, Haina bought a necklace for Dongchan, a small but heartfelt gift. He smiled, moved to tears, yet both knew the truth. It was time to say goodbye. The next morning, Dongchan personally escorted Haina back to the company so she could reclaim her rightful place as the heir to the Kangsan group. But Representative Kang had already prepared a plan to destroy her. He had secretly ordered men to tail Haina and Dongchan, uncovering Dongchan's shameful past as a former escort. Armed with this information, he published an article exposing the heir of Kangsan Group, falling prey to a professional seducer. When the chairman saw the article, his fury was uncontrollable. Haina, terrified, knew exactly what would come next. He would forbid them from being together. Without hesitation, she grabbed Dongchan's hand and ran. He didn't even know what was happening, but she didn't have time to explain. All that mattered was escaping together. The chairman immediately ordered his staff to suppress the news, but Representative Kang had already leaked it long before. The housekeeper sent people to search Madam Kang's residence, suspecting that the two might be hiding there. It was then that Dongchan finally learned the reason behind their sudden escape. He wanted to take Haina back to face the chairman and apologize, hoping for forgiveness, but she refused to go. Haina knew for certain that her grandfather would never allow them to see each other again, so she begged Dongchan to run away with her first. The news spread quickly, and soon even Ju and Taeyun found out. They searched everywhere for the pair, but couldn't find a single trace. Neither of them knew that the couple had fled to a distant seaside town. To settle down for a while, they rented a small, cramped room, the only one they could afford. Not wanting her family to worry, Hye-na texted the housekeeper to let him know she was safe, but as soon as he received the message, he reported it to the chairman. Upon hearing that his granddaughter was living with Dongchan, the chairman was furious. He immediately ordered his men to track her down using her phone signal. Meanwhile, the two were enjoying their newfound freedom together. Sitting by the sea, Hye-na curiously asked, "Since when did you start liking me?" Dongchan smiled faintly and said, "I don't really know when it began. Maybe it was the first time I saw you cry. At that moment, I promised myself I'd protect you, that I'd never let you cry again." Hearing those heartfelt words brought tears to Hye-na's eyes. She felt deeply moved, wishing that they could stay together like this forever. That night, Dongchan laid out the blankets, getting ready to sleep on the floor, but Hye-na insisted on taking the spot. They ended up playfully tugging back and forth until Dongchan fell onto her. Being that close, he couldn't help wanting to kiss her, yet he forced himself to hold back. As he lay awake, Dongchan began to wonder if running away with her had been the right thing to do. Just then, his phone rang. It was the housekeeper. The old man urged him to bring Hye-na back, saying that a girl who had lived her whole life in luxury shouldn't have to suffer because of him. No sooner had he hung up than Hye-na suddenly hugged him from behind. Being with the man she loved like this made her feel truly happy. She even whispered that she wished she'd been born into an ordinary family, then maybe they could be together without worry. But the reality was cruel. She was the heir of the Kang-san group. And so, no matter how much it hurt, Dongchan couldn't let her throw everything away for him. Gently but firmly, he persuaded Hye-na to return to Seoul with him and apologize to her grandfather. The two quickly headed to a luxurious hotel. Hye-na wondered why her grandfather had asked her to come here instead of meeting at home, especially when the room was set with a dining table for many guests. While including her grandfather, there were only 3 people. She invited Dongchan to sit down with her, but he refused and made an excuse to go outside. When Dongchan didn't return for a long time, Hye-na began to grow anxious. She was about to look for him when her grandfather and Tae-yoon appeared. Only then did she realize she had been tricked into coming here. Today was the meeting of both families to choose the date for Tae-yoon and Hye-na's wedding. Everyone's faces were bright with joy, preparing for the couple's happy day, except for her, who was on the verge of tears. In front of them all, Hye-na said she didn't want to get married, leaving everyone stunned. As a result, the other family left in anger, and her grandfather lost face. He couldn't understand why his granddaughter refused to marry such a good man like Tae-yoon, but in her heart there was only Dongchan. The chairman, helpless with his granddaughter, decided to disown Hye-na. After that, when she didn't return home, everyone reported it to Dongchan. He immediately guessed where she was and hurried to the hotel. As expected, Hye-na was there. Dongchan tried to force her to go back home, but Hye-na refused to leave. "Do you even know how I feel right now? I thought you liked me too, but I didn't expect you to deceive me and hand me over to Tae-yoon. You're selfish and cowardly." "That's right, I'm a coward. Someone who has everything like you, to love freely, would be wonderful, because you have so much to lose or to throw away, while someone who has nothing like me can only let you go so that you don't lose anything that already belongs to you. If I had known this day would come, I would never have become your butler. Hye-na, please go back home." After saying everything he needed to, Dongchan turned to leave, ending this love. But soon after, he began to regret it. He truly couldn't bear to part with the woman he loved. In a rush, Dongchan ran back to that room, held Hye-na tightly in his arms, and couldn't let go anymore. The two of them spent an incredibly sweet night together, and now nothing could separate them anymore. Dongchan and Hye-na held hands and went to see the chairman, begging him to accept their relationship. Though reluctant, in the end, for his granddaughter and the reputation of the Kang-san group, he agreed. He even had someone write an article praising their love to restore Hye-na's reputation. The couple was overjoyed and quickly returned to work at the company. The butler was surprised by the chairman's decision and dared to ask him about it. Unexpectedly, although he appeared to approve of them, in reality, the chairman only wanted to appease Hye-na so she wouldn't go out and cause trouble. Once he had arranged everything, he would make sure the two never met again, and neither of them knew anything about it. When Hye-na met Tae-yoon again, there was no resentment or blame between them. He accepted letting her go so she could find happiness, and she sincerely apologized to Tae-yoon for causing him pain. Meanwhile, Dongchan returned to his aunt's house to pack Hye-na's luggage. He also sent her gifts to Yui-ju to thank her family for their help all this time. That night, Dongchan happened to see someone sneaking into the chairman's office. It turned out to be Butler Jang. His behavior looked suspicious, but he lied, saying he was just cleaning. Because the chairman didn't have much time left, he made a will and asked Dongchan to leave Hye Na once he decided on his successor. If he truly loved her, Dongchan shouldn't let Na lose everything for love. Knowing their time together was running out, he wanted to take Na out to create many beautiful memories. Unexpectedly, her bicycle suddenly lost its brakes, causing her to fall uncontrollably. After the incident, Dongchan checked the bike and discovered someone had deliberately cut the brake cable, and the one behind it was none other than Representative Kang. Dongchan went straight to warn him not to touch Na or the will, or he would report everything to the chairman. Moreover, he forced him during the meeting to clap loudly to congratulate Na because she had successfully increased sales by 15%, officially becoming the chairman's rightful heir. To celebrate Na, Dongchan took her out for a walk around the city. When they happened to pass by a bridal shop, Na kept stopping to admire the dresses. Seeing that, Dongchan pulled her into the store to try on a wedding gown. As soon as the curtain opened, he was mesmerized by the beauty of his lover. Dongchan quickly took out his phone to record this memorable moment. Na told him she truly looked forward to the day they would get married. So when her grandfather agreed, he must propose to her. Wanting to be with the one she loved as soon as possible, Na sincerely asked the chairman to let her and Dongchan get married. But he refused, and told her that all this time he had been delaying things only to wait until she was capable of taking over the company. Now that she had the ability, he no longer needed Dongchan. Unexpectedly, Na still chose to stay by his side and gave up her career, which made her grandfather deeply disappointed. Not long after leaving, the chairman suffered a heart attack and collapsed. Only now did Na learn that her grandfather had never undergone surgery and had only a short time left to live. Before that, he had one final wish to tell his granddaughter to marry a man who could take over the corporation with her, and that man was certainly not Dongchan. Na couldn't bring herself to reject her grandfather's dying wish. Therefore, she forced herself to suppress her emotions and said goodbye to the man she loved most. Dongchan had long known this day would come, so he uttered no complaints. He wholeheartedly supported Na, even though they would never have the chance to meet again. Not long after, the chairman was discharged from the hospital and returned home, but he could no longer walk and had to use a wheelchair. Na returned to her daily life, as it was before Dongchan came to work there. Yet no matter when or where, she always thought of him. Meanwhile, Dongchan went back to working at the flower shop. Although he was no longer Na's butler, he still worried about her and often asked Ju about Na and the company. The people working for Representative Kang heard that the chairman's health was deteriorating, so they all came one after another to confirm the situation. To prevent them from disturbing her grandfather's rest, Na personally came forward to receive them and skillfully found excuses to send them away. Meanwhile, Dongchan suddenly received a message from a colleague asking him to come to the bamboo forest near the mansion. Without thinking much, he went there and unexpectedly saw the chairman. At that moment, the chairman was alone. The person who sent the message had originally intended to create an opportunity for Dongchan and Na to meet, but now, she wasn't there. When the chairman dropped his hat and struggled to pick it up, Dongchan stepped out to help him. Seeing him appear there, the chairman was surprised and asked why he had come. He said it was just a coincidence and quickly said goodbye to leave. Right then, Na returned after buying some drinks. The two of them finally met again. His heart had already begun to waver, but Dongchan didn't dare stay. He coldly walked past Na, and only when he returned home did he quietly play that video, looking at her in her wedding dress, and silently shedding tears of pain. The next day was Na's birthday. The servants at the mansion held a surprise party for her, which deeply moved her. Meanwhile, Ju also knew that today was Na's birthday, so she persuaded Taeyun to help arrange a meeting between Na and Dongchan as a gift for her. Ju would call Dongchan, while Taeyun would take care of Na. At that time, the chairman also spoke to the two butlers he trusted most, hoping that after his death, they would continue to take care of Na. But the female butler said the person the young lady truly needed was not them but Dongchan. Then she handed the chairman the letter Na had once thrown into the trash. Following Taeyun's instructions, Na went to the riverside and unexpectedly saw Dongchan sitting there. Startled, she turned to leave, but he ran after her. Knowing that today was her birthday, Dongchan didn't want to miss such a good opportunity. In the past, Na had given him a coupon that could grant any of his wishes, so he asked her to stay by his side for just one more day. Of course, Na couldn't refuse. Hand in hand, they strolled down the street, played fun games in the amusement park, and enjoyed delicious food together. Time passed quickly, and their day was coming to an end. Before saying goodbye, they shared one last embrace as their farewell. After reading the letter Na had written, the chairman finally understood how deep her love for Dongchan truly was. After all, everything he had done was for his granddaughter's sake, but if it wasn't something that made her happy, the chairman could no longer bring himself to separate the couple. He then said to Na, "I know today is your birthday, so let me give you a gift. Live the way you want to, that is true happiness. Whether what you choose is an heir or a butler, do as you wish." Hearing this, Na was overjoyed because she knew her grandfather had accepted her and Dongchan being together. Suddenly, he said he felt very cold and asked Haina to get him a blanket. She hurried away, but when she came back, her grandfather had already closed his eyes for a long time. The chairman took his last breath after fulfilling his granddaughter's wish, leaving Haina alone in the world. After the funeral, she decided to temporarily step down from managing the company and study abroad to gain more experience, entrusting the company to her uncle since he was her only remaining relative. Representative Kang no longer wished to compete for anything. He sincerely hoped that Haina would grow and return someday. Before leaving, she personally cooked a hearty meal for everyone as a token of gratitude for always being by her side. When Yuiju heard that Haina was leaving for America that day, she rushed to tell Dongchan, hoping he would go to the airport to see her off. But Dongchan didn't have the courage to meet her again. He had already decided to let her go, but suddenly received a message from her. After reading it, Dongchan was filled with regret and hurried to the airport, hoping to see Haina before it was too late. Fate finally allowed them to meet again. A world without Haina was a world in which Dongchan could never be happy, so he swore he would never let her go again. Dongchan begged Haina to stay by his side, and they were able to return to the happy days they once had. And with that, the story comes to an end. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.